Hello again everybody, so me back again, and I just want to continue on from this font that we looked at in the last lesson. And first of all, I want to look at a function in VEX called sprintf or sprintf. I'm not sure how I would pronounce that. Now the reason is, let's take a look at it first of all, is that it formats a string like printf but returns the result as a string instead of printing it. So in this particular case, what I want to do is I want to take a float value and I basically want to convert it into a string that I can then use in order to add to this font node. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, say for example I want to add an attribute in here, or the value of an attribute. I can't just put the attribute in there. I have to direct it from another node. But the font node will only accept string, it will not accept a float value. So I have to create my float, convert it into a string, and then add it to this float node. Okay, so let's quickly look at how to do that. And I will start off by just using an add node. Let's do that and create a point, so at least I've got some information. Okay, and this is down here. And now I'm going to add my my wrangle, and this I've got running over points. I can run it over detail if I want, but I'm just going to run it over the point here. And what I want to do now, let me think, I'm going to call this sprintf. Alright, beauty mate. Right, now next one, let's first of all create a float, and I'm going to use this as an attribute so we can compare them. So f at, and I might call this, what should I call this? I'll call this float test. Okay, and then this is going to be, I think, 2.2. Okay, now if I look down at my geometry spreadsheet, I can see that I've added this attribute here, 2.2, and if I go into my information, I can see that I have float test, and I can see that it's a float. It's given me the type right there. Okay, so let's turn that off. Now I want to convert this into a string. So let's do that using the sprint function. So first of all, I'm going to use a string, so I need to put s as the type, and then I'm going to create it. Let's call this string test equals, and then I've got my sprint f. Yep, let's have this. Alrighty. Okay. And then what it looks for, it says here, is it formats a string like printf but returns the result as a string instead of printing it. So it doesn't give me much information here. So I'm going to have to look under this this print function here. So let me just do that. I've already opened that before. So printf, it's got format, and then here I'm going to put my attribute that I want. So I'm looking down here at the various information I've got, and I can see that I've got this thing here, print a float vector, vector form, matrix 3 or matrix in floating point form. And to do the float, I've got this little percentage and an f. Now I'm going to add that information directly into here. So I'm going to put this as a string, and I'm going to put this here, and what was it, a D or an F? It was an F. Okay, and let's close that off. Okay, and now I'm going to the float test, right? So let's do that. So this is float. I'm writing really slowly because I've got the microphone in front of me too. It's getting in the way a little bit. No worries. Alright, and there we go. And now I can see that my string test is now giving me 2.2000000. And if I go into here, I can now see that I have a string test, and this is a string type, and this is float test, and this is a float. So this is perfect. This is what I want. but I do have all these zeros on this, and this seems to be something to do with the way that the computer calculates floats, and I don't want this information. I don't need all of those zeros. So let's go back here, and I have an option here, which is the D, which print an integer variable in decimals. So let's do that. In fact, let's try first of all the integer one. Let's see what we get. Okay, oh, gives me the same information, so I'm going to go D, right? So with the D, I now can see that I've reduced this now back to 2.2, so I have a float and I have a string there. So this is how the sprintf works. In this particular case, it's creating my float information here into string information. Why is that useful? Well, now I can use that string information and add it to my font node, and I will do that in the next lesson.